Our association, of course, is a nonprofit. We're South Carolina Football Officials Association. I've had a good many of you in here. I've had your games and some I've never seen before. Currently, our membership, I think last year, we're currently in the enrollment phase of this year. But last year, I think we had about 700, maybe 20 something. Is that right, Charlie? Somewhere around there? And about 150, maybe 160 of those were new first-year officials. So, you can see the dynamics of being made up of the 720 something is versus the new. So we're not hurting as bad as a lot of states, but we could always use more. And it's really a geographical area, like, based on where the biggest need for officials are. But we've been fortunate, and our association is made up of 13 different districts across the state, right? So we got different districts. As you see on my shirt, I'm District 2, which that's part of Union Cherokee County. We can go all the way down the list from Greenville to Charleston and Myrtle Beach.
They don't make numerical sense either, so don't even try to understand why 10's in Anderson, but 1's in Greenville and 13's in Clinton. Just don't even try.
Yeah,
Understand
exactly.
the numbers of it.
Exactly. And we have a board. Each one of those districts has a district director that represents those group of officials. And I imagine you probably dealt with your local district director, especially when it comes to sub-varsity levels, for scheduling of officials, for your middle school, JVs, C teams, 9th grade, D teams, whatever you call it. So that represents a board, and we have an executive board, which is a president, a vice president, and a secretary, and a past president. So if you're ever president, you serve on that board as well as a past president. And so that kind of makes up our board, kind of in this entity. Now, I mentioned something about sub-varsity levels. Of course, I'm probably preaching to the choir a good bit here, but the sub-varsity with your middle schools, your JVs, are assigned locally by your district director. And which, in case that works out well for us, because we know the schools, we know the need, it's all geographical right there to take care of those needs. Now, from Friday nights, of course, that is assigned through the high school league. And there's a lot of perks to that, and that's something that we really enjoy having that process done, because it gets us out of a lot of loopholes. So we enjoy that. But that's kind of the overview of the South Carolina Football Officials Association. Current needs, we need officials. We could always use more officials. 10 years ago, well, let me back up and say when I started, this will be my 18th year. And when I started, it took you about 4 or 5 years to get to a Friday night game. And so you had a lot of middle school JV games that you actually worked to get to that point. Here in the last couple of years, just with turnover, just with retirees and new people and just overall lack of interest. We're seeing first and second and third year officials getting Friday night games right off the bat. And you guys are experiencing it. So we know that's a hurdle for us. And so we're trying to take steps and take drastic steps to try to cure that. Is it going to be fixed overnight? Absolutely not. But, you guys might know, and you might know, this year we actually voted to have a true clinic where we're going to set aside July 12th to actually educate all of our officials with one voice across the state just on mechanics. If we can just conquer the mechanics level, we feel like we're going to have a great showing, and you'll see a drastic change in the level of officiating. So our biggest need, of course, is recruitment and definitely retention. Because if we're turning over 150 officials every year, I mean, your knowledge and your old timers and your people who've been doing it 25, 40, 50 years are getting out. And you're losing that experience and that tribal, that tribal knowledge and that mentorship. So there's it's a rollover, it's a turnover, but it's not drastic like you see with a lot of companies or whatever. There's still a lot of good officials, of course, across the state in our association that does a great job. What you got there, Chester?
Jericho, Winchester High School. I'm going to ask probably a dumb question. How's the white hat of the night determined? Is that like by chance? Is that like something? How do you determine who's going to be the lead official for?
We get together and we flip a coin, and no, I'm joking. No, that's determined. That's determined. I know you guys probably believe it.
It's based on eyesight.
I'll tell you what, every one of y'all got a sideline one to start with. But no, when we first come in, you're assigned a position, right? And it's basically a position of need, but usually there's two positions on the field that you are not assigned as a first-year official. That is a white hat and a back judge. For us, those are the two critical, all positions are critical on the field, but those two positions, we really want experience with those positions. So to answer your question about a white hat, usually that comes with experience, or if it's somebody like a prodigy that comes in and just is a lawyer or a doctor or a preacher that can read the rule book like that, pick up and just ace the exam. But that person, he or she, would have to do that multiple times just to get signed, a good Friday night game.
So it's a transitional process to get there. All the positions are assigned based on what their main position is, and it depends on the week. So we have any given week we have anywhere from 90 to 100 referees in the rating system that we can pull from, depending on who's injured, where the games are, what week it is. If we hit that week where it's 104 games and I got 5 white hats that are hurt and I only had 95, I got to find 14. So then we go to what we have an alternate pool, which may be a back judge or a line judge or an umpire that's worked referee before, typically sub-varsity. So it's the same process your kids go through. How'd you pick that kid to start at quarterback? Well, he started in 7th grade. We moved him around, and we did this. And sometimes you tweak their positions to find where they best fit. Sometimes you'll have a guy that'll work white hat on Thursday and Wednesday nights to start getting experience with it, so that they're ready to go on Friday. And then if we need them on a Friday emergency, well, now we got to be real selective to say, all right, like Lee, for example, doesn't work white hat on Friday nights. But if I needed him to and he had a little experience, I'm going to put him with a couple other people that are going to be able to help Lee get through that as a non-primary white hat. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Next, mention that I got 2 sons that Lee and I had extensive conversation with as well. Right now, I'm leery about promoting my own children to the village. And the reason I say that is because who's going to take care of them? Like, if we hire a new coach, we're training a new coach. And do you feel like we'll ever get to partial crews or something like that? Because I feel much better, like Lee called and said, hey man, I got an opening, to know that, all right, okay, hey, Lee's got a spot, you're going to officiate, they're going to take care of you, they're going to mentor you, they're going to train you. Will that ever potentially evolve?
I'd struggle with it becoming any crew. I would think the best we would ever possibly ever get into a situation of is that we married an umpire and a referee together and kept them together. It's still going to require me to have 100 duos that actually like each other and get along for 10 weeks. And that's tough. That's really tough. I mean, you're talking about grown individuals who all come from different facets and different walks of life, different areas, and different personalities. And some will be fine working with some people for a week, maybe 2. But if I got to go with you for 3 or 4, I don't want no part of doing this anymore, type thing. So that's probably as close as we could get to is marrying 2 people. When you start putting 4 and 5 people together and saying you're going to be a crew all year long, it complicates things tremendously from a logistical standpoint and signing all our names. It just is not going to be feasible. One example would be blocks. Right now, we're required to block where they went to school, where they live. So if I just take Spartanburg and the Spartanburg area, I got 5 officials and they're all in a crew. One went to Norman, one went to Spartan High, one went to Burns, one went to Gaffney, one went to Union. One lives in Woodruff, one lives in Riverside, one lives in Clover, and one lives in Chapman, and one lives in, Bowling Springs. All right, that crew of 5 people, though they could have 3 of the best officials in the entire state. They'll never do the Spartanburg-Dorman game. They'll never do the Burns-Gaffney game. They'll never do Bowling Springs-Spartanburg. They'll never do Woodruff-Union. They'll never do Woodruff-Clinton. They'll never do anybody involved in any of those schools I just named. And I can tell you right now, if I told Lee I'll put you on a crew, and that's a possibility, he'd say I want no part of it. Because what he knows right now is he can't work for the schools that he can't work for because of him. It has nothing to do with anybody else. So he's got the opportunity to work for anybody except for the ones where he lives and the ones he went to and the ones that have blocked him. And all those are his problem. And the other piece is they're going to hitch their wagon to the fact that you're going to create my new problem to get me blocked from that school. And that's
Is that the like ACC, SEC, do they have, when they have a crew, they have those blocks also, or they don't do it in college?
They have some blocks to some degree. They prevent them from the university I think you went to. Like Dwayne Haight, who's out of Columbia, who's in the NFL now. He couldn't work for the University of South Carolina, but he was in the ACC anyway. But he could never do the Clemson, South Carolina game because he went to South Carolina. But he did Clemson games. Well, Clemson blocked the guy. He caught 3 holes when they played Pitt and lost that year. They won their first national title, and that's the worst guy we've ever seen in our life, you know. And a year later, he's doing the Rose Bowl. 2 years later, he's doing the Georgia-Alabama national championship game, and a year later, he's in the NFL. So he controls his own destiny. But yeah, he does. They block those games, I think.
As of right now, any official that works on a Friday night is the same pay, right?
Not right now. That may change next week.
No, not well, the same base pay.
For the first,
Everybody's not on the same base pay?
We did it last year for the first time ever. We experimented with the idea of everybody getting the same fee, which jumbles everybody into the mix. What we've had is 4A, 5A got the highest rated officials, 3A got the next highest rated officials, and 1A, 2A got what was left. But 1A, 2A was paying $30 difference than 4 and 5 on the base fee. So we were paying less. Well, it's the only sport we're doing that way. It's the only sport we do it that way for. So there was talk about doing away with it and going to a flat rate. And then we had to say, wait a minute, let's see if we can even assign that. Because see, right now, the algorithm for assigning is based on priorities. You got to go in and hand set the priorities. And I had to make sure that when we went in and hand set and changed it every week, the priorities that we could change it every week, and it did work. Because the last thing we wanted to do was commit to the executive committee and the membership, yes, this will work, we can do it. And then we get to week 2, and it's chaos, and we can't be done, and we have to drop back and go back to what we were doing.
So that's what's in place now?
We did that for the first 4 weeks last year.
Yeah.
1 fee for every official, and we just went in and we just kind of reordered the chaos behind the scenes. So what it used to be, what it was for week 4 through 10 is 5A, when we hit the auto assign button, it's 5A referees first, 5A, 4A. So it just goes tick, 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 skips 2A, 3A, 4A, and so every 5A gets a referee first, every 4A gets a referee with that group, right? So every 5A, 4A gets the referees. Then it referees out the 3As. Then it goes back and recycles through and referees the 2 and the 1s and gets what you left. And then it goes back through to back judges and does the same thing. Then it goes to line judges and does the same thing. Then it goes to umpires, then it goes to linesmen. So you really are potentially getting the 5 worst rated officials at your game if you're in a smaller school.
Is an executive committee, who was assigning the fees?
Executive committee was setting those for the membership, yeah. And so what we're looking at doing is saying, hey, we're going to restructure that. So what we did last year, week 0 through 4, was, all right, we're going to send a top-rated referees to 5A week 1, but we're going to send the worst umpires to 5A first. We'll start with the best umpires at 1A, and then the best line judge at 3, and the best back judge at 4, and the best linesman at 2, and then create the order that it spits it all out in. And then next week, I've got an Excel spreadsheet that had it all laid out for how it was done so that everybody got a fair, and it just kind of went to TikTok so that over 4 weeks, everybody got a top-rated white hat.
Just something like these, did y'all discuss it? Did y'all like that?
oh, well, yeah, there was some discussion about it. Of course, you know, for us, a lot of you guys you don't like seeing the same people all the time, whether you like them if they're good, but you don't like them if they're bad. But it just kind of mixes up, and like for me last year, I think I touched 4 to 5 classes. I had a 1A, 2A, and I got a 4A and a 5A.
How's the rate, how y'all rate it? Like you said, rating system like college, how's that?
We take a state exam every year. Usually it's the last Saturday in July. And that, based on that test score is how we're rated. But there's also other things going in. Peer rating, that factors in a small percentage, but, you know, the biggest rating is the test itself. Yes, sir.
And it's a straight rule knowledge test, an application.
You think we could ever evolve the rating system a little bit to remove some of those things, like where you live or whatnot? Like if the evaluation system handled that, you could open up more access for guys to go.
You could, but there's other aspects of that crew and blocks and stuff. You got officials blocking officials. I mean, you've got restrictions on mileage. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Some of them got a good list, too.
Someone's got it. Yeah.
Just say, I can't work with
And
you.
again, it's the same reason some of y'all block officials. It's just a personality conflict.
Yeah.
It's not that you don't like what they do, you just don't like how they do it, to some degree. So they do block each other from that. And that, yeah, they get to do that.
So from the scheduling,
Yeah.
you know, that's a nightmare for whoever's doing the scheduling.
Then there's some weeks where we, you know, two years ago, week 8, we had 31 back judges block the week. It must have been a popular week for weddings or anniversaries or something, I don't know, but when you talk about 31 back judges, that's a prime position that we're already short in, we gotta move people. That's 31 people activated that we weren't gonna use to fill one position. You take 31 off crews, there's gonna be crews we don't have enough sometimes. And then I gotta call and say, hey, look, you're not gonna have a game Friday because we don't have a crew. We gotta play Thursday or Saturday. You know, which is not ideal.
Completely unrelated. Is there a command structure to the crew that you have on Friday night?
Command structure?
And the reason I ask that is because in the last 2 years, I've had 2 different white hats come to the sideline and tell me, well, coach, I know it's wrong, but there's nothing I can do about it. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're the guy wearing the white hat.
The white hat should be in charge of the crew. That should definitely be that. Now, if that wing official had a call and the white hat, you know, didn't agree, well, didn't see it or whatever, that's a different story. But for him to come over and say that he is not in charge, the white hat is in charge.
Yeah, I mean, one of them literally said, coach, I said, you're the guy in charge. He said, no, coach, nobody's in charge here. And I'm like, wait, somebody's got to be in charge here. I mean, you're the one that tossed the damn coin.
We like playing the equal accountability, but in all, the white hat is in charge of the crew.
Lee, what would you like to see the host school do when you guys arrive as officials?
Usually the red carpet, I like to see that. Come on now. No, I'm joking.
Only for you.
No, and that's a generalization. I can honestly say most schools, if not all schools we go to, you know, are pretty standard, and pretty similar, and we appreciate that hospitality. We really do.
Nice dressing room, something.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
Clean,
yeah,
not an afterthought, not a, oh, yeah, we'll get it next week.
Someone
And
has
it's got,
to get you in front of the
right.
field.
it's got dummies in it, dirt on the floor, things like that.
I mean, at the state championship, we had a good locker room. That's all I'm gonna say. But I'm joking with you. Hey, Coach, I had even though you're well liked, I had to throw that jab in there, Coach. But
I know where you're going week 1 next year.
yeah, see, I know where I'm going, big one.
I got you too.
Yeah.
Communication, that's starting to pick up more. Is that something that can be pretty common practice?
We could use that. We're talking about headsets on the field. We can use that. Usually that's a crew-to-crew decision. Some white hats or some other official might have enough referees for all the crew, and it's just a vote from the crew. Where, you know, hey, we want to wear them tonight or we don't.
So do you feel like that gives better communication, or people willing to speak up, or sing anything like that?
You do, but like me, when I wear one, I'll be honest with you, I forget to even go into the mic and tell you what I got. I'm looking at the white hat, and I got a hole over here, you know. I'm still doing the hand signals and doing that, but yeah, effective communication, especially from, if it's on one side of the field, and you're the coach on the other side and you want an explanation, yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good tool. But again, it resorts back to the personalities of the officials, you know, whether they want to use them or not. I don't think it's going to, we haven't voted to make it a mandatory thing.
So Lee, the other day, I wanted them to do it that way. When they asked if we were properly equipped, I asked them if they were properly equipped back. But,
To answer your question, further expand on that, it's about 50-50, positive and the negative of it. Number one, those systems, you know, anywhere from what, $700 to $1,000 for a set of 5 or 6. It gets costly for them. But two, I've seen at times where I've had to get on to some groups that used it because of their lack of communication. You know, there's times where it's dead ball, or it's, you know, between quarters or periods or timeouts where they need to be together having a conversation. They're not. You know, they're talking to the mics, and they get so dependent on not coming together that they don't really have the conversation they need to have. We had one where they flipped into the fields, marked the ball on the wrong yard line. Would y'all talk between the quarter? Well, no, we had headsets. Well, that ain't what the mechanics say. So it's created a crutch to some degree. So I don't discourage it, but I do encourage them if they do it, don't forget about your person-to-person communication eye to eye as well.
replays come up a lot. Expand on that.
Replay on the field? Yeah. Well, first of all, it's not allowed in the regular season for any football game by federation rule. In fact, any video device cannot be viewed on the field of play by federation rule. And, you know, officials, if you say, hey, look at this, if they look at it, they got a big problem when they come Monday morning, because they're not allowed to do it. And truthfully, and I said this back when they started getting popular, you know, huddle's a great thing. You get that sideline video, you got the TVs. I mean, some of y'all got a nicer setup than people got in their homes, but if you're using that to break down and coach and strategic, strategize, I guess, and show and develop kids, great. If you start using that to see if the call wasn't there that you thought was, or was there that you thought wasn't called, all you're doing is you're just giving yourself, you might as well go ahead and pop 2 antacids, because all you're doing is giving yourself heartburn. Because what you just saw is not going to change when you go tell the official, look what I just saw. The missed call or the call that you didn't agree with still happened. And guess what? We're 3 plays deeper now, and we're still moving on. It just becomes an is what it is. So no, I don't see it creeping into the regular season anyway. First of all, not by rule, we can't do it.
Lee, I know you and I have talked about this before, but in Georgia, we would every weekend get an email from the association. There's just like a Google form that would ask you to evaluate that crew, different ratings on different things and all this stuff, any type of feedback. Is there any type of process like that we're looking at just to help improve the overall? You know, just get feedback, just give the coaches a voice on the crews and amongst the associations every week.
We're currently, we've got some things kind of in our little subcommittees,
Yeah.
per se. And that's one of the things we're looking at to redoing or revamping, the peer rating. And there's been some talk of that, but that's just still stuck in kind of committee from the association.
I felt like it was helpful, you know, it's just
Brett mentioned Georgia. Georgia was a demarcation line for 45, since you're not allowed. Officials are better pregame. Part of this on us, honestly. I mean, last couple of years, it's like Crips and Crips and Blood gang warfare before the game. Like, we got to do a better job of that. But is there a chance that officials will be out there earlier in pregame and stay out of these areas?
I don't think so. Federation rule says that Federation book speaks to, they will assume authority 30 minutes prior to the game starting on the field. The other piece is you got to remember that 7:30 game, their expectation is to be there at 6 o'clock. And most of these guys can travel anywhere up to 75 miles. So you do the math, and you know some of your areas. You know, I can tell you at 4 o'clock, 2 Tuesdays ago, I tried to leave the Charleston Marriott and come to Columbia to make a baseball game by 7. I didn't make the mall exit by 5 o'clock. And that's about, what, 10 miles? The mall exit. that's 10 miles an hour. If I'm going to downtown Charleston or living in downtown Charleston and it's the wrong traffic day and I gotta be there by 6, I might be leaving at 3:30. I'm only traveling 40 miles. So to say we need you to be there, because see what they're getting there at 6 is they're gonna take about a 15 to 30 minute time to dress, have casual conversation. And then they're gonna take about a 30 to 40 minute time, depending on how long all that takes, to do a intense pregame to where they go through reminders, you know, how to officiate certain things, to have conversation. Remember this, remember that, what are you looking for on this? That way they're all on the same page walking out there at 7 o'clock to come find you. And we speed that up. There'll be some of you, we'll say, listen, you're going to have to start at 8 because we can't get them there till 6 at the earliest. It just becomes a challenge. Now, if y'all want to put that little spot in there and say between 45s, we can't do this, and the home team's responsible for running film, y'all could write a rule proposal, we can put that in our book next year.
What can we do to help recruit officials?
I know one of the things that a lot of you schools have allowed us to do, which we've definitely been appreciative of, and some districts do it, some don't. But like coming to speak maybe at, you know, after graduation or something like that, speaking to your schools on kids that's not going to move on to the next level, right? They're not going to go to college. They're not going to do this. They're going to go into the workforce, and they might want something, some little hobby to do. Give you an example. We got a guy out of our district. He spoke to our annual meeting last year. Is Rick Patterson. I don't know if you know Rick Patterson or not, but he's just completed, I think, his 28th year in the NFL. And he got into officiating. He went to Wofford. And instead of going to a burger joint or being a waiter, he started officiating football. And look where he ended. So we want to offer that to a lot of, especially if they're 18 or older, to try to catch them early, to get them to where they need to be. Like if they want to spend some time in high school and maybe move on to college or the NFL. But being, you know, having that avenue, or speaking, you know, at one of at your football banquet after the season games or whatever. Just having that voice. But you know, you guys do a great job playing over the intercom. You know, at your Friday night games about fishing and recruitment and stuff like that. So we appreciate stuff like that.
I think I'd probably get out in spring ball and just get the word out. Visit spring ball.
I think another thing too, Coach Shaw, you can do is everybody can encourage their JV, 9th grade, middle school coaches. Go easy on them. You know, yeah, they want to win. Yeah, they want things to be right. But you know what? You got JV, 9th grade, middle school players for a reason. They're learning too. And it may be 2 or 3 guys on that field that are learning. I mean, my son played JV football 2 years ago. I was in the bleachers, which is where I sit when he plays. And got a first down. And I look across the field. We're in on the 25 going in. 1st and 10. And they got the chains going from 25 to 35. And I'm like, something's wrong here. And I'm like, I've got to be a first, second year guy. And so at halftime, I asked the referee, I said, hey, what year's the guy over there? He said, this is his 3rd game ever. I said, I can see that. I can see that. So they're learning. And we've got to have a little bit of compassion for them down there, because what happens is if that's their first taste of it, that's their first experience of learning how to do it. And if they get absolutely just bombarded, verbally accosted for how inept they are, chances are they're not going to make it to year 3. If we can get them to year 3 or 4, we got a good chance to keep them for 10+ years. But if we don't keep them to 3 years, they're not. Nobody ever leaves and says, "Hey, I'll be back in a few years," and really comes back. Except for ones that have a significant reason why they left.
This is a Twitter issue that always comes up about knee pads. I mean, it's a funny thing, but it's like, you know, that's the thing now. Is NFL, whatever that conversation is that, because I know early on this year, that was like almost like a highlighted thing, was like, hey, pull pants down or back up on the sideline, but, you know, kid gets killed on a pass interference call, and it's like, oh, I didn't see it, kind of deal. So, I mean, I know that.
That's still going to be a point of emphasis for us, especially moving forward. That hadn't changed. But, you know, and that's just something we do as a state.
So
It's a
how?
federation.
Yeah, it's a federation rule, so how, we're lost on the college game. I mean, they're gonna be in volleyball shorts in 2 years. You know, they really are, if you watch some of them. And it doesn't help. It would be really helpful if those coaches would make them wear what they're supposed to wear and look right. So what the federation rule says that they'll be legally and properly equipped, which requires the pants to cover the knee and the pad to be in the pant. It's very simple. And what was happening was there were some states that choosing to ignore it completely. And we were trying to fight it a little bit, but we had sporadic officials. Some would be little layers and say, pull them down all the way. Some would be like, ah, that's good enough. Some would be like, I ain't looking for it. Okay? So it was very inconsistent. But we had some states that were letting them do what college does. And if you're not in Texas, where they follow the modified NCAA rule book, you follow what federation rule says. So there was 2 rule proposals 2 years ago, and I serve on the rules committee for our state. There was 2 proposals, and both were written tongue-in-cheek. One of them said no pads in the pants, and the other one said the pants must get past the thighs. Okay? They got no votes, because medical people said, listen, you got to have something there. Is the pad going to prevent an ACL tear? No. MCL tear? Absolutely not. But the pant covering the knee gives a little bit of protection for the face mask cutting the skin, or the shoulder pad cutting the skin, or something minor that could come into a MRSA or some other major infection into the legs or skin, right? So it's just a basic medical, hey, it probably is better to have it covered with a little bit of pads just because. So when none of those passed, the editor from the Federation said, look, you know what it says. If you don't follow Federation rules, our ability here is to take your vote from you. So what that means is that if we didn't follow, they'd come and say, hey, y'all lose y'all's vote, which means there's 50 state associations now that will vote because DC is considered one of them. We won't get a voice in the room. I won't get to sit there and tell people how bad I think this rule proposal is and do everything I can to kill it. So, and I like being able to do that because I think we align in the South very well of our 8 states on our ideals of what high school football should look like. And when we lose 1 or 2 of us in that room, and we didn't have one this year and a vote passed by 1, that if we'd have had him, it wouldn't have passed. But he wasn't there. And when we lose 1 or 2 of us, we lose that strength in our voice. We're known as a Southern block because we like to block everything, to be honest with you. But there was a state last year, first 2 weeks of the season, ESPN games, Fox games, all that stuff, pants up to here, pads up to here, call came to their office and said, you got 1 week to fix it, you're losing your vote. They fixed it. So are we being nitpicky? Yes. But we're asking them to enforce the rule as it's written. Just like if you said, Charlie, it says if that wide receiver runs past the neutral zone before the ball snapped, that's a false start. Coach, I get it. But they weren't throwing the ball, so it doesn't matter. You'd say, you're crazy. You're crazy. No, they ran a dive. It didn't matter. It's the rule. You're going to follow it. The second part, and I know Coach Roscoe's about to kick us off stage here. The second part is that this past year, there was a rule proposal that would treat the equipment violations just like the sideline warnings. If you remember 5 or 6 years ago, if you had illegal equipment, they sent you off and it carried a foul. But nobody was enforcing it. You remember that? Nobody was enforcing it because no official wanted to throw a flag because the kid's pants came up or weren't down. So they said, we'll get rid of that, just send them off. Just send them off. So it became easier. Well, then it became, well, we're sending 15 off every 3 plays. And then the coaches were like, I don't know what you want me to do. Well, actually, there is a rule in there that gives the official the latitude to say, you know what, fix it or I'm going to penalize you for unsportsmanlike conduct. And that'll be your first. And if it happens again, you're going to be gone. And I've encouraged ours, don't let it get that far. Right? But there was a proposal last year that said, address it just like the sideline warnings. First time the kid's pants are too high or they're not dressed appropriately, send the kid off, that's your warning. Second time is a 5-yard, and every time after that becomes 15, 15, 15. Well, it didn't pass because you know what? After the warning, nobody's going to do it again because nobody wants to penalize them 5 or 15. You know, there was talk. Take timeouts. First time we send them off, it's a warning. The second time we send them off, it's a team timeout. That'll get your attention quick, but it didn't cost you nothing. Maybe a timeout later in a half, but it didn't cost you, but that wasn't written as a proposal. But so there's always ways to address it. My thought is, If we'll just follow it, then we don't have to come up with a penalty of why we need to keep it in place, you know? So yes, it gets nitpicky, just like the sideline stuff gets nitpicky, but it's there for everybody's protection.